We are recording tonight's session, and after the meeting, we will, let everybody know where the recording will be available. We also hope to share it with other people who maybe weren't able to attend tonight. So now I would like to introduce Barbara Shipnuck, who is our new president, to say a few words of welcome.
Thank you, Cynthia. And before I start, I just want to tell everybody, Cynthia Gordon is one of our vice presidents for advocacy, and a lot of what we do involves advocacy. National Council of Jewish Women has been an organization for 125 years that has tried to move issues forward on behalf of women, children, and families. And so tonight is just another one in the long line of the issues that we care about, making sure that everybody has the opportunity to vote. Coming up next week on Thursday, August the 27th, we are going to be hosting Eric Ward and Rabbi Peter Levy, who will be discussing white supremacy, white nationalism, and anti-Semitism. And then following up on that, we're going to be starting a new discussion series. And the first in that discussion series is on Thursday, September 17th, which is the third Thursday of September. And the additional discussions will all be on the third Thursday, so you can begin to look at your calendars. And the follow-up discussion on September 15th is going to talk about our experiences. It's going to give the participants a chance to share their own experiences on racism, anti-Semitism, and unconscious bias. So we're hoping that we have good turnouts for all of those events. And I encourage you, if you have not yet, to please sign up for those. For those of you who are members, and I think most everybody here is, the new e-blast came out today, and you will see them in the e-blast with the link so that you can sign up for any of those. So thank you again for attending this evening. I look forward to a very vigorous presentation and discussion, and to learning, and also getting to know some of you who I don't know very well, to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks, Barbara. Deb Welchuk.
Good evening. I am Deb Welchuk, and I am co-VP of Advocacy along with Cynthia, and it is my pleasure to introduce our guest, a Vote Forward ambassador, Colleen McCarthy.
Hi, thank you all very much. Can you all hear me okay? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry it's really dark in here. I think you all are also subject. I'm in San Francisco, and we lost power on Saturday due to the rolling blackouts. So we're trying to conserve energy here. So apologies for it looking like I'm sitting in the dark when I'm talking to you. I'm just trying not to use energy. So I am going to share some slides with you and talk you through a little bit about Vote Forward, which I am a ambassador as well as a field organizer. So I help with sort of volunteer engagement for Vote Forward. So let me share my screen real quick. All right. So I'm gonna, in this presentation, try to only take about 15 minutes. I'm gonna watch my time so I can answer questions, but give you a little background, sort of behind the scenes about Vote Forward and what you'll be doing with Vote Forward. So Vote Forward is a 501c4 social welfare organization with a core mission to increase the participation of traditionally underrepresented groups in the electorate through handwritten letters to voters. And so Vote Forward started right after the 2016 election, and we did a lot of work throughout the 2018 election, turning out voters for the congressional. And then starting in 2020, we really started in 2019, but we really got rolling and gained steam in 2020, where we started our Big Send, the Big Send program, where we're writing 10 million voters to turn them out for the 2020 election in key states. The letters, I'll tell you more about that, were a proven tactic in 2018, and we're using that data to guide what we need to do this year. So you can see some of the partners with the big send here. So what is letter writing? So letter writing is a nonpartisan activity. You are sending letters, a form letter, as you can see here on the right, and that you customize for each voter, and you personalize it with a note about why you vote, and they're held and mailed closer to the election. So you can see an example here, but I'll give you some more details in a minute. What I want to talk about first is sort of the foundational philosophy behind Vote Forward. Just to give you some details, you might ask, who are these people that we're writing to, and where are we getting this data of these voters that we write to? So we're writing to low propensity voters. These are not all of us. So they think differently than us. They have a different approach likely than most of us who are on this call. So that's always an important thing to remember. That means that we have data that shows that they're not very likely to vote for one reason or another. And we are targeting them because they will help really increase turnout. I think everyone agrees that the more people we have voting, that's just an American value. And therefore, this will really help turn out more and more people, so we have a more representative election. We get our data from the elections officials, Secretary of State, and then it is augmented with commercial data that we get elsewhere that tells us, for instance, their vote propensity score, which means how likely they are to vote. Again, we only rate the low propensity voters, and other data. Oops. Someone have a question? I don't want to talk over Joe Biden. Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you. No worries, no worries. I just didn't want to make it hard to hear. We augment that data with data that tells us that they're a little more about these voters who we're writing to. We write with the templates you just saw, which I'll show you again, because frankly, if we had to write 10 million voters fully by hand, we'd never get that many done. It's also because we've tested those templates and they show that they're effective at turning out voters. So we know it's a scientifically proven approach. We ask people to write nonpartisan, positive, and inclusive messages. Remember, these are low propensity voters. So this sort of partisan, extreme partisan is, could definitely be one of the reasons they don't want to vote or they rarely vote. And so there's a lot of data that shows that nonpartisan messages are more effective with these low propensity voters. And they're written by, volunteers who we vet. If some of you have signed up for Vote Forward already, you know that you have to go through a process where you have to get approved, and it takes a couple days. And it's actually a person that looks at your application to make sure you're not a troll, not that any of you are, but the other people out there, a bad actor, they could be. And that they're mission driven, that there's a reason you're doing this that's towards the same mission of increasing turnout as for underrepresented voting populations. So this is a little bit more detail about who you'll be writing for. Since you are a nonpartisan organization, you'll probably mostly be writing to voters in the Vote Forward A campaigns. So when you go to the Vote Forward site, you'll see campaigns that you can choose from, and those include, and they'll say something like, let me think of what some of our campaigns have been written already. So I'm trying to think of one. Michigan, for instance, they'll say GOTV, which means get out the vote, A. So those A campaigns are underrepresented voters. They're either millennials, they're voters of color, they might be immigrants, they may be unmarried women, and they are low propensity also. We know from their sort of voter propensity score that we attach to every voter's file. So those are the group of people. We have separate partners who are partisan partners who write to the Vote Forward B campaigns, which once we pull everyone out of the Vote Forward A campaigns, then we look at that fits in the Vote Forward A campaigns. We look at everyone else who's left and then put those that have a strong sort of Democrat score or likelihood to vote Democrat. We throw those in the B campaign, as well as continuing to still be low propensity. So anyone, you know, whose high propensity just won't fall into either of these campaigns. People who vote, probably like most of you who vote, you know, early and vote right away. So where do we send letters? I actually should have updated this today because we've added a couple of states just in the past week. So we started out sending to these key 12 states here. And we've recently added Montana, which actually so many people wanted to write for that those letters have all been written in less than a few days already, or at least adopted. And also New Hampshire, and what is the third one that I'm forgetting? I'm forgetting the third one. Anyways, it's definitely New Hampshire and Montana, and the other one will come to me probably in 3 slides, and I'll remind you. But you'll see these campaigns. When you go there now, if you go after this call to register, not all of these campaigns are available right now. And why is that? Well, that's because many of these campaigns we've written the first sort of bulk of voters, the first set of voters. And there's just a few states where we haven't written all of them. And so we're trying to finish those up. And then that will be, all these states will be refreshed with additional voters in a couple weeks. So you won't find every state, but it's the states, the letters that we do have up there, it means we're having trouble getting them to people to write to all of them. So it's super helpful if you can write to some of them are up there. But some of these other states, if you have a particular interest in them, they will show up likely later again. And so a little bit about the post office, because that's probably key on everyone's mind right now, since I'm talking about letters. So as I sort of explained to you, and I will talk about a little bit more, Vote Forward is a very data-driven organization. We test all of these letters, and we did through 2018, and we did again through the Virginia elections in 2019, that we actually do increase turnout versus control. And we use what are called randomized control tests. If some of you previously have a background in pharmaceuticals or anything like that, or statistics, you probably know randomized control tests are one of the best ways to ensure that what you're doing is actually having an effect, and it's not masked by the fact that you know, you're not getting, that you're actually comparing apples to apples, and you can see the effect of someone who gets a letter versus the same type of voter who doesn't get a letter. And so that tells us that these work, and we're using that same approach to make sure that we understand how to address the situation with the post office. Truly, and I'll show you in the next slide, the post office can handle a lot of mail, and 10 million letters is just a drop in the bucket. Clearly, there's a lot of stress on the post office right now, but there is actually a lot of wiggle room there, so we feel good about that. But we are probably going to move up our mail dates. So the dates that right now, when you would adopt letters, we'll probably email you in a couple weeks or a month and say, actually, we're going to ask you to mail these letters a little bit early. The thing to understand is that these letters are tested and proven, and there's a lot of other research that also shows if you remind somebody right now to vote, they will completely forget it. Remember, these are low propensity voters. They're not people that are thinking like us since, you know, November 7th or whatever in 2016 about voting in 2020. They've got a lot of other things going on in their lives, or they may just feel disenfranchised for one reason or another. So unless we capture them right before they're most motivated and they're most able to vote, so they have a ballot or they're able to go vote in person, and there's a deadline in front of them, they're just gonna look at the letter and have forgotten it. So, oops, sorry about that. So we need to make sure that we're hitting them closer to the election. So we're not gonna, if we sent these letters in September, they're gonna have no impact. So we are still going to send these letters in in probably middle of October or beginning of October, but we will be moving it up knowing that there have been a slowdown in the mail date, in the post office and their activity. So you can see we're looking at tons of things that people who are writing all the letters about the post office and talking about anecdotal data about how long it's taking letters to get places are not doing this consistent research and analysis on what's going on. We actually have volunteers across the country who are sending test letters right now to see how long it's taking. So that is something to be aware of related to the post office. And here's, as I mentioned, the post office anyways, usually not holidays, handles 182 million pieces of mail a day. So they are used to handling a lot of mail. And yes, we should support them. And yes, we should speak out about it. And yes, we should buy stamps. But we have a little leeway here with their capacity. So let's talk about writing these letters. So you saw this template before and how you move forward or how you actually write these letters. You can see I've written a letter here on the right. So what you'll do is you'll go to Vote Forward, you'll adopt voters, and then once you adopt those voters, you'll be able to download a PDF of, a set of voters, 20, 5, 50, however many letters you want to write. And you'll get one of these templates for each voter. And what you'll want to do is look at the bottom of the letter, and I know because this is on the slide, it's really hard to see, but at the bottom in this red box, pink box, is the voter's name and address, as well as a return address for you to use. You do not need to use your own return address. You should not. You'll be using a return address of a volunteer in the state of the voter that you're writing to. And that's so that volunteer can capture all these letters that get returned to them, and we can update and fix the data. So you'll be getting a template for each voter. You're going to look at the bottom of the letter to see the voter's name. You're going to write "Dear," put the person's name there. You're going to write a couple of sentences about why you vote. We'll talk a little bit about those messages next. You're going to sign it with your first name and your last initial, or just your first name. Then you're going to address the envelope using the voter's name and address that's at the bottom of the letter. You're going to put the return address on there. Remember, the return address is at the bottom of your letter. You're going to be using one of a volunteer in that state. And you can use your first name and first initial, or just your first name with that return address. And you're going to stuff the letter in your envelope. You're going to stamp it, and you're going to wait till we tell you to mail them. And remember, we're going to give you some updated information about when to mail it. You should make sure you're always not making any assumptions about the person's name. We are doing testing separately around bilingual letters, but the people who are in these campaigns, we have no data to say that they don't speak English or that they prefer some other language. So don't make any assumptions based on their name that should be written in some other language. Similarly, that's why we don't recommend you use Mr., Mrs., Miss in front of their name. We don't want to make any assumptions about how they identify either. That can easily make someone read this letter and decide that it's not for them or ignore it. So write in English. Printing is recommended. Not everyone can read cursive anymore. You can use just your first name or your first name and your last initial. Blue ink, as you can see, sets apart your message from the template a bit, but if you only have black pens right now, that's fine. Make sure you write nonpartisan and you're relatively concise. You don't have a lot of room there. So what messages work best? So the messages that have worked best, which I mentioned before, are nonpartisan and inclusive. So, you can see an example here. I vote because together our voices can be louder than dark money, or if we don't vote, we let other people decide for us. So things that bring these people in to voting with you, as opposed to scare tactics or excluding them or things like that. There's lots of research that shows that for nonpartisan voters or for low propensity voters actually brings them in and interests them. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like, why might somebody be a low propensity voter? Well, they feel excluded potentially from the sort of election process, from our democratic process. And if you bring them in and you sort of connect with them on shared values, so to speak, that can actually encourage them to vote rather than things that could make them, that could be controversial depending on who you're talking to. So when we talk about issues, you know, we know that people can be on very many spectrums of how we handle healthcare, from you know, Medicare for all to the ACA to just making the ACA better or whatever that might be. So if you choose a particular policy, you could definitely get it wrong for a lot of these voters, because we know everyone across the country has very different views on that. But if you say something like, you know, if we all vote, we can make sure that everyone has access to quality health care. That's probably something that everyone can agree, even if they're on quite different spectrums. So those are okay things to mention, but not particular policies or candidates. So a little bit about how you get started with Vote Forward.
Actually, Colleen, I'm going to ask you to skip this part because we're going to have them enter through the website that you've set out for NCJW and give those instructions later.
Okay, that's fine. The one thing I mentioned is no matter what website you go to, there's very detailed instructions at voteforward.org/instructions. So that I developed based on a year and a half of analyzing how our volunteers, what questions they have and what instructions they needed for writing letters. So it's very detailed. So I would encourage you to look at that if you need any help with the instructions, because it's very detailed. So that is all that I had. Those are the sort of background behind Vote Forward, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. But I think we're going to go actually to Deb, and then we'll come back to questions. So I'll just take
we'll do the
questions slide down for now.
Sorry, thank you. We'll do the questions after everybody's had a chance to go. Deb?
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Claire Lipschultz, who is one of our California SPAs, and I can never remember what that stands for.
State Policy Advocate.
Thank you. And she is also a vice president on the National NCJW board, and she is a member of the Sacramento section. So all yours, Claire.
Thank you, Deb. And obviously, I love this organization, right? I mean, I'm just on every level, and every level brings me challenges and joys and an opportunity to be engaged with really smart activist women, which is just a total pleasure. So first I want to thank you, Greater Long Beach and West Orange section. Did I get that right? Okay, for inviting me to speak today. And I really want to say just a huge thank you on behalf of Barbara and myself, Barbara being my sister SPA, for so enthusiastically and competently embracing this project. Barbara and I are old-time political activists, and we felt a bit adrift when we found ourselves quarantined and not able to do our usual political get out the vote work of knocking on doors and standing in one place or another in the cold or the heat and getting people registered. So both on a personal level, but also in our role with our responsibilities as state policy advocates, we started to research what was really the most exciting opportunity out there to do voter engagement during this time of quarantine and just COVID generally. And as you know, there are many different organizations, but after our research, we landed Colleen on Vote Forward as the one that we felt was putting out the most effective method for getting people out to vote. So, and also they were wonderful to work with. I might just add that as well. So we decided to investigate Vote Forward further. The more we learned, we loved the fact that it was data-driven, that it was evidence-based, that individuals could do it from home, that it was simple and yet heartfelt because you were able to write your own reasons for why you vote, and that just as a package, it really worked. We wanted to figure out a project that would bring our state together. You know, our sections within the state would typically get together once a year during lobby day. And we missed that this year because we couldn't get together. And although we had a really robust day over the phone, over video, it wasn't the same. And we really wanted to not lose the great bonds that exist between and among the sections. So we decided to bring the Vote Forward concept to the different sections who I knew all wanted to be engaged in promoting the vote. And your section and the Sacramento section were early adapters. And again, for that, we're eternally grateful because we've learned a lot through all the through your experimentation with it and all the great questions that you've asked that we've had to figure out answers to. So Sacramento started a little earlier than Long Beach, but you guys are catching up. And when I say catching up, I just want to say, not that I'm competitive, but it's really, but I am. And it's really fun to see how the different sections are performing in relation to one another, to sort of goad ourselves on a little bit. But I'm so happy to announce that as of well, today, so it's probably even better now, that between our two sections, we have written 2,100 letters, which I think is really pretty astounding. And we have 65 volunteers who are adopting voters, as you know, Colleen described it, who have signed up to individuals and writing letters to them. So it's so far, and the LA section, I want to say, is launching as well. So we're very excited that this is really taken off in California and that everybody is doing, I think, a really fabulous job. I'm so excited about this that in my role as co-coordinator of all the state policy advocates across the country, I brought it to them. And 4 of them jumped on this idea as well of creating a statewide platform for the sections in their states. So NCJW California is now joined by NCJW New York, NCJW Florida, NCJW Texas, and NCJW Ohio, who are basically following the same model that we are in California, organizing the sections and turning out the letters. So it's really not a surprise that California is at the leading edge because we always are, but we've done it once again. Okay, so I am still trying to gin up even more states to create their own branded networks, because I just think there's a lot of good that happens when there's that kind of ownership. That being said, there are people that are NCJW members that don't belong to sections. There are sections that are not that well organized. There's SP, or they haven't come to Vote Forward or in an organized way. There are SPAs that sort of can't take this on. So, because I believe so much in Vote Forward, I brought it to national, which I could do, again, in my role as vice president. And I said, you know, really, we should add Vote Forward as one of our national campaigns to add to the toolbox that we already have put together for our Protect the Vote, Promote the Vote campaign. And as of this Wednesday, there's going to be a leadership webinar on voting in honor of National Voter Registration Day. And we're launching NCJW Vote Forward NCJW. So this will be the catch-all platform for all the people who otherwise don't have access to joining state platforms. And it just expands our reach and our letter writing, just as you can imagine, hugely. So I think this is a great example of, within our organization, how things don't necessarily just come down from the top, but they bubble up from the local regions. And that's just generally a good thing to keep in mind. When there's a good idea, you know, national will recognize it and sort of scale it up to a national platform. I think that's really all that I have to say right now, other than, again, a big thank you for all of your efforts. And I just can't wait after this launch to see how the numbers grow in NCJW California.
Thank you very much, Claire. We do have a couple of questions for Colleen,
Deb.
and we have a couple for Claire. So Colleen, I'm going to start with you. Regarding mailing dates, are there different dates for different states, or will you expect it to be the same?
Right now, there's one date for all states. We expect to move it up. I'm not sure yet. The research isn't done to know if they will be slightly different by state. So it will be moved up from the date you see when you log in, and you'll be told, you know, through email in many ways what that date is. But I don't have all the details yet on if it'll all be the same date or there'll be a couple.
Right. With the A campaigns, do you first select the communities or neighborhoods and then individuals based on voting frequency, or something else?
So, you know, in the early 2019, we decided the states, but all of these lists are statewide. They're not based on particular communities within a state, other than the characteristics that I described to you: low propensity, and the fact that they are sort of either in the underrepresented group, or they're in a group of people that are more likely to vote Dem. So those are the ways that they're chosen. It's not specific to like a city or a district or at that detailed level. That would be pretty tough to do. And in order to sort of encourage the turnout that we feel we should have in the United States, we need to sort of target everyone in those states. So.
Thank you. Now to switch gears a little bit, how exactly are volunteers vetted?
So if you've signed up, you've kind of seen the process. If you haven't yet, you basically you can sign up with your Facebook or Google account, or you can just use your email. If you just use your email, you have to confirm your email. You know, it'll send you an email and you click on the link and then you're good to go. It just asks you a few questions. So it asks you why you write these letters, so we can hear your reason behind it. And also it asks you for some basic information, which isn't actually relevant to the vetting process, like where you live. But then it also asks you to optionally provide a social media account, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook. And we don't use that data any other way. It's not like we post to your Facebook or any of those things. That's not involved. We use that to get a little bit more information about you, so that we know that, you know, for instance, you're not some hacker who wants to come in and adopt thousands of voters and just hoard them so that they don't get mailed, right? Those are things that could potentially happen by sort of a bad actor who just wants to, you know, impact, you know, people. There are spammers and hackers that do things for all sorts of non-obvious reasons. So it's just a security feature, nothing specific. So that's all that we're looking for, is to make sure that you're a person who really does want to volunteer and not someone who's trying to, cause some problem with our platform.
One more question. Can you explain how the process, I understand it, but there might be some questions out there that when you adopt voters is how you get their names, correct?
So we get so the voters' names we get from the Secretary of State, and then you get, because you log in to Vote Forward and you adopt, you say, I want to adopt 20 voters in Michigan. And so we randomly choose the next 20 voters in the list and give those to you, you know, from the Michigan list. So that's how you get particular names, and it's all at the bottom of that letter. You'll basically be, you'll say, you'll click the button that says, I want to adopt 20 voters. It'll give you a list of those voters. There'll be a big blue button that says, I want to download these letters. You'll click it and you'll get a PDF of 20 templates, one for each of these 20 voters you adopted. So that's how you get them. That's how you get the list and the templates. And then all you have to do is fill the templates out. It's all there for you. So that's how it works.
Great. Thank you.
We lost your sound. There you go.
Claire, question for you. We are wondering how NCJW California selected the Florida campaign.
Well, we looked at the lists. We saw there were many voters in Florida that needed to be adopted. We had some conversations with our contact person at Vote Forward. We had initially wanted another state, which I can't even remember right now, but it had already been fully adopted. I mean, it was obviously a popular state, and at least at that point in time, there were no names left. And so we spoke with Crystal and asked her what she thought, Crystal is our contact, what she thought would be the next best state that needed the most firepower, if you will. And that's why we decided to do Florida.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. One more question came in.
We will definitely have a lot of Florida, and Texas will probably be our last states with letters left in them. So we thank you because there's so many voters there. So we thank you for writing to those.
In addition to Florida, the question came up, can we adopt other states on our own?
So this is a discussion. Well, not really. You know, NCJW California made a decision to go with Florida.
Okay.
And you know, if somebody wants to go outside of the NCJW California platform and register just with Vote Forward, I suppose that they could do that. But right now we're staying focused on Florida. We just heard Colleen affirm that it's really important that we work there, and that's the way we're set up right now. Now, if something happens and we finish because everybody just turns out an amazing number of letters, then you know, we'll switch to another campaign.
Okay. Colleen,
but I guess I do want to just say, sort of, a voter is a voter is a voter, and they all need to be turned out.
of course. Colleen, how many letters are being written to Florida, or what is your goal? How many names do you have, I guess, would be the question.
That's a good question. I don't,
You know, you can tell, Colleen, I don't know if you can, because I don't have enough devices, but when you go to the Florida page, it says how many are still left.
yeah, there's more that will get added there. That's why I'm hesitating. So that's in the current tranche of Florida voters, but there will likely be more added. So for instance, it says right now 600,000 left, and I think there will actually get more added to that after we finish all of those. But in any case, there were overall, there were, when we started, I want to say there's at least 2 million total in Florida that we need to write to out of the total, like 10 million, if not more, but I've forgotten exactly how many specific to Florida.
Well, that should keep us busy for a while.
Yeah, I don't think you'll run out for
Yeah.
Florida. As I said, I think they'll be the last one standing, Florida and Texas, probably.
Thank you so much, Colleen and Claire. I'm now going to turn it over to our own Deborah Chankin to talk a little bit about how we're doing this in our section.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Sorry, I've just, so I am one of the many Deborahs we have. I have for the last few years co-chaired with Janet Rosenblatt, who I believe is here somewhere, our voting and elections activity. And I just want to, and by our, I mean the Greater Long Beach, West Orange County section of NCJW. And this year, obviously, everything's different. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how we're approaching Vote Forward, and on a very concrete, local, individual level, and a little bit about the other aspects of our voting and elections activity in the next few months. If you have heard enough to decide that you are ready to work on Vote Forward and do it through our section, through our NCJW California, we would ask you to please fill out our NCJW Long Beach Orange County volunteer form. It was at the bottom of the flyer. It is accessible on the website, and we will send you the link, or show it. We will show you and then send you the link. But please do that. That gives us an opportunity to know that you're involved. It gives us an opportunity to support your involvement. We try to design this effort in such a way that everybody can participate. Some people are homebound, some people are financially stressed. People are in many different situations during the pandemic. We want to make this activity available to everyone. So you will have a chance to tell us if you don't have access to a printer. You will have a chance to tell us if you don't have access to paper, envelopes and paper. You will have a chance to tell us if you don't have stamps and the ability to get out and mail your letters. And you will have a chance to tell us if you can support other people in those ways by helping to deliver and pick up supplies. So that also allows us, when you do sign up through the NCJW California page, to know who you are, just in case we don't recognize your name because, or your email, whatever reason. We don't get a Long Beach list. We get the California list. Some of you have already done this, but that makes it easier. When you go ahead and put your, fill out that form, you will get a response from us locally with instructions that we think are clear, and also with the opportunity to be paired up with a Vote Forward coach from our working group. And that person will be available to help and sit with you on the phone or on the Skype or whatever you need to get you, or by email to get you through the several steps and hopefully alleviate some of the confusion that can happen, or surprises, things that come as surprises, or, oh, I didn't notice where that was on the webpage. And it is a well-functioning organization, is a well-functioning webpage, but we can miss stuff. That's what we've learned along the way. If you would like NCJW California, including us, to be credited with your efforts, you must register through the NCJW California webpage and go to Vote Forward through there. Or if you didn't do that the first time, when you go back, log in through there. And again, we can talk you through that. If you do that, please select the nonpartisan Florida campaign. If you have decided for your personal reasons, and I have heard from some people, that you think Vote Forward is a great idea, but you feel personally compelled to adopt a partisan campaign, please do not do it through our page. We, as a 501c3, are legally obligated to do nonpartisan activities, as we have always done, as I think, as Barbara mentioned earlier. But so that's what I want to put out there about Vote Forward. Everybody should be able to participate, and just a couple words about other voting and election activity.
Before you move on, Deb, we had one question for you, which is whether we will be provided with a variety of sample texts to use in the letter.
Okay, so our instructions include a few sample texts, courtesy of Sacramento, thank you very much. And I would ask Colleen whether they also have sample texts. But yes, there are some, and if you are looking for a greater variety, we can certainly do that. We've been tweaking this information as we go along, as a number of you have helped us test it out. Okay, so other local efforts, voter registration. Over the past number of years, we have been on our local community college campuses, 2 campuses in LA County, 2 campuses in Orange County. We have also been out at Cal State Long Beach a few times, and we will most likely not be doing that. We will be inquiring with the schools whether there's other ways that they believe we can assist with voter registration. We will be discussing some online possibilities, but most likely that which we are accustomed to will not be happening. Voter education, we will be having our usual once every 2 years program. It will be on Zoom with the Long Beach Area League of Women Voters presenting on the ballot propositions for us. So that is coming up on October 7th, and we hope you'll join us, and that is business almost as usual. With regard to getting out the vote, 2 years ago, we did phone every member of our section. We did offer rides to the polls, and there is no reason we will not be able to make phone calls again, and there should be no reason we will not, and we expect that rather than offering rides to the polls, we will help coach people who have never voted by mail before, and we will coach, we will be able to assist with getting ballots, vote by mail ballots into the ballot box that can legally be done. If that assistance is requested, that can legally be done in California, and we will be letting other organizations in the community understand how that can legally be done in California. We will also putting out lots of messaging to our members and looking for ways to get that messaging out into the community about what voting is going to look like this year, tips for where to post your ballot other than how to turn in your ballot other than the mailbox, and tips for, what was the other thing? Oh, common mistakes that are made on vote by mail ballots. That, again, assuming that is new to some of us and not to others of us. So those are the kinds of things we're talking about. We have a working group, several of whom are here, and because I can't see all of you at the same time, I'm not gonna name those names, but thank you very much. You've been terrific. And so we will be busy, and we will do our best to encourage voting locally, to encourage effective and informed voting locally, like we always do, but in some new ways, as well as now having a national impact, doing our bit through Vote Forward.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you very much. So I did put in the chat box the link to our website where you can sign up for this project. And I think we've covered all the questions. If you think of further questions, I'm also going to write our email in the chat box. Yes, go ahead.
It looks to me like perhaps there's a question that wasn't answered. So when I said business almost as usual, I was referring, didn't know what I was referring to. So I was referring to our ballot proposition program, which we hold every 2 years. We will hold it on time. We will hold with our usual presenters from the League of Women Voters, but it's almost as usual because we will do that via Zoom and not in person as we have been accustomed to do. What is coaching people about voting by mail? We have heard from some folks in the community who have always gone to the polls that they're a little anxious about voting by mail because they've never done it before. So it's just, here's what to look out for. Here's how to make sure that you've, signed where you need to sign, and so on and so forth. Similar to the kinds of messages we put out before the LA County's mock election and before the March primary, when many voting systems were changed all at the same time.
Okay. Well, we did intend to try to keep this to an hour, and we've done a good job with that. So thank you to everybody, all our speakers. We appreciate everybody who came to the screen and shared this time with us. As you all know, this is really important work this election season. And I was just doing some quick numbers. If, say we had about 30 people in the room, if everybody did 20 letters, we'd quickly have 600 letters. If each person in the room told one other person about it, that could double to over 1,000. And, Claire.
And I just have to add to that, Cynthia, yes, yes, and yes. And it takes about, in an hour, you can write 20 letters.
There you go.
So when you're watching Rachel Maddow, sit with a pen in your hand.
Or any other program.
Any other program, yeah. It's easy to hit that 20 thing.
Right. So let's all do our part and try to help Vote Forward reach the 10 million letters. It's an ambitious goal, but I'm impressed that 2 million have already. Well, how many million did you say? Or 100,000?
So,
100,000 have been done.
We're almost at 4 million. So
wow. Almost
at 4 out of the 10. But we got 6 million to go, I think is what everyone should hear. I think yes, Claire would agree with me on that one.
Yes. 6 million more to go. So thanks everybody. We will notify you all when the recording is available and can be shared. So great presentations. Thanks again for all your participation, and good evening.